Picture a sheer diamond of rock erupting from the Judean desert floor. It towers more than 400 meters above the shimmering surface of the Dead Sea. Its flanks are sheer limestone cliffs, almost laughing at anyone bold enough to attempt them. There are no gates easy to storm, no gently sloping fields for an army to mass upon. There is only sky, silence, heat, and the faint salt wind drifting up from the water far below. This is Masada. And in the spring of 73 AD, nearly 1,000 men, women, and children stand upon its summit. They look down at the greatest war machine the ancient world has ever produced. The Roman 10th Legion surrounds them on every side. 8 fortified camps grip the desert floor like iron teeth. A circumvallation wall of sun-dried stone stretches for more than 4 kilometers, sealing every path of escape. The Romans are not simply attacking a fortress. They are sending a message to every corner of their empire. No rebellion will be permitted to breathe. No defiance, however remote, will ever be forgotten. For 3 years after the fall of Jerusalem, this community has endured on the rock. Their leader is Eleazar ben Yair, a man of uncompromising conviction. They will not surrender. What happens in the days that follow will be debated by historians for 2,000 years. This is the siege of Masada, a final stand against Rome. To understand Masada, we must first understand the world that built it. The fortress does not begin with rebellion. It begins with a king's private fear, with a man who dreads his own subjects as much as he dreads his enemies. Herod the Great ascends to the throne of Judea in 37 BC, appointed by the Roman Senate itself. He is an Idumean by ancestry, and the Jewish population he governs never fully accepts him. He is a client king, a ruler whose crown rests entirely on Roman favor, not on Jewish love. He has enemies everywhere, in the Roman court, among the Jewish aristocracy, and in the whispers of his own household. Josephus, our essential ancient source, tells us that Herod builds Masada for 2 reasons. First, he fears a Jewish uprising that would overwhelm Jerusalem before Roman reinforcements could arrive. Second, and this detail is remarkable, he fears Cleopatra of Egypt. The queen has the ear of Mark Antony, one of Rome's 3 rulers at the time. She covets Judea, and Herod knows that a single well-placed word could strip him of his throne. Construction begins around 37 BC and finishes by approximately 31 BC. Herod does not simply build a retreat, he builds a statement. A plateau at Masada measures roughly 600 meters from north to south and 300 meters from east to west. Herod encases it in a massive casemate wall, a double wall with rooms built between the 2 skins, those chambers converted into barracks and storage. The wall contains 37 towers, each standing close to 20 meters tall. Within that perimeter, Herod raises a world of extraordinary ambition. There are 2 palaces. The western palace covers nearly an entire acre and serves as the administrative and ceremonial heart of the complex. It contains a throne room, reception halls, and a private bath suite of genuine refinement. Mosaic floors in geometric and botanical patterns, among the earliest ever found in Judea, cover the rooms in brilliant color. But it is the northern palace that astonishes every visitor who encounters it. Built on the very tip of the plateau's northern spur, it cascades down the cliff on 3 artificial terraces. The upper level holds Herod's private quarters and a semicircular colonnaded balcony commanding a dramatic view of the Dead Sea. Below it, a staircase leads to a circular decorative hall, and lower still, a complete Roman bathhouse. The walls of every room are plastered and painted with frescoes. Scholars examining the northern palace note its striking resemblance to the imperial villas of Rome's Palatine Hill. Herod builds in the style of his masters, projecting wealth and political allegiance simultaneously. He also solves the desert's central problem. Masada receives barely 3 centimeters of rainfall a year. Herod's engineers cut 12 cisterns into the western cliff face, linked by a network of channels and gutters. Together, they hold approximately 40,000 cubic meters of water, enough, according to ancient accounts, to sustain 1,000 people for years. The storerooms alongside contain grain, oil, wine, and preserved food sufficient for a prolonged siege. Herod completes his mountain citadel and largely leaves it behind. He never needs his desert refuge. He dies in 4 BC, having outlived his worst fears. After his death, Masada passes into Roman hands as a minor garrison post, an administrative footnote at the desert's edge. For 6 decades, the fortress waits in silence. Then everything changes. The name they carry is Sicarii, drawn from the Latin sica, meaning a short curved dagger. They are not the mainstream of the coming revolt. They are the extremists within the extremists, a faction so radical that even the primary zealot movement, itself already waging war against Rome, regards them with uneasy distance. The Sicarii specialize in targeted assassinations, using concealed blades in crowded marketplaces to strike Roman officials and those Jews they consider collaborators with foreign rule. They are relentless, ideologically absolute, and deeply feared. In 66 AD, as Judea erupts in full revolt, a band of Sicarii strikes toward Masada. The Roman garrison stationed there is small and unprepared. The Sicarii gain entry through a ruse, the precise nature of which Josephus does not specify, and overwhelm the defenders before any alarm can rally reinforcements. The greatest fortress in Judea is now in rebel hands. Their leader at Masada is Eleazar ben Yair. He is, according to Josephus, a descendant of the philosopher Judas of Galilee, the man who founded Sicarii ideology generations earlier, teaching that submission to any ruler other than God was a form of idolatry. Eleazar carries this theology as a living inheritance. For him, submission to Rome is not merely political defeat, it is a betrayal of divine sovereignty itself. Meanwhile, the great revolt unfolds across Judea with terrifying momentum. In the beginning, the rebels achieve astonishing results. The Roman governor of Syria, Cestius Gallus, marched south with the 12th Legion to crush the uprising quickly. He reaches Jerusalem, achieves a partial breach of the walls, and then, inexplicably, retreats. The retreat turns into a rout at the pass of Beth Horon. Jewish fighters cut the withdrawing column apart. The 12th Legion loses its eagle standard, a humiliation so catastrophic that the Emperor Nero cannot ignore it. Nero dispatches one of his most capable generals, Titus Flavius Vespasianus, known to history as Vespasian. Vespasian is patient, methodical, and utterly professional. He does not rush toward Jerusalem. He secures the Galilee first, strangling the revolt town by town. It is during the Galilean campaign that we encounter Josephus himself. He commands the Jewish defenders of the Galilee, fights, and loses. After the fall of Yodfat in 67 AD, he surrenders to Vespasian and becomes an advisor to the Roman command. He spends the rest of his life writing the history of the war he lost. Every word we know about Masada comes from this man. On the plateau above the Dead Sea, the Sicarii under Eleazar transform Herod's abandoned luxury palace into a functioning community. They convert one casemate chamber into a synagogue, one of the oldest ever found in Judea. They use the royal storerooms and adapt the bathhouses. They are not simply hiding. They are building a life above the desert, waiting to see what the revolution below produces. What it produces is catastrophe. The revolt fractures from within. Different Jewish factions wage brutal internal wars, even as Jerusalem faces Roman siege from outside. The record also contains a detail that complicates any simple narrative of heroism. According to Josephus, the Sicarii descend from the mountain during Passover and raid the nearby Jewish settlement of Ein Gedi. 700 inhabitants are killed. Food and supplies are carried back up the mountain. This episode is deeply troubling, and no honest account of Masada can omit it. By 70 A.D., the fate of Jerusalem is sealed. Vespasian, called away to become emperor following Nero's suicide, passes command of the Judean campaign to his son Titus. The siege of Jerusalem, the sacred heart of Jewish civilization, is prosecuted with relentless Roman efficiency. 5 legions surround the city. The population inside swells with refugees and tears itself apart through factional bloodshed. Food disappears. Josephus repeatedly approaches the walls on Titus's behalf, pleading for surrender. He is met with arrows and contempt. In August of 70 A.D., the Second Temple burns. Its destruction is not merely a military event. It is a rupture at the center of the universe, as the Jewish world understands it. The temple is the dwelling place of divine presence, the axis of all religious and civic life. Its collapse shatters not just a building, but an entire cosmological order. The trauma echoes forward through Jewish history to the present day. A Roman soldier throws a burning torch through a low window during the chaos of the final assault. Whether accident or intention, the great structure collapses into ash and rubble. The golden menorah of the temple is carried to Rome in triumph, its image carved forever onto the Arch of Titus, still visible in the Roman Forum today. After Jerusalem falls, Titus departs for his triumph in Rome, leaving behind a devastated province. The task of eliminating the remaining rebel holdouts falls to the new governor of Judea, first Lucilius Bassus, who reduces Herodium and presses Machaerus to surrender, and then, after Bassus dies in office, to a new man, Lucius Flavius Silva, a capable administrator and soldier from central Italy. 3 fortresses still fly the rebel flag at the start of this campaign. Herodium falls quickly. Machaerus negotiates and surrenders before the Romans complete their assault ramp. Only Masada remains. Why does Rome bother? By 73 A.D., the war is officially over. Judea is pacified. Fewer than 1,000 people cling to a remote desert mesa. The empire has nothing strategic to fear from them. Recent scholarship has proposed a compelling economic motive. The Sicarii of Masada had raided Ein Gedi, where workers produced balsam resin, one of the most coveted luxury commodities in the ancient world, prized at more than its weight in silver. The destruction of that settlement represented a tangible wound to the commercial order of the province. Some scholars argued that Rome sends its army not merely to punish defiance, but to restore a productive economic region. Others hold the simpler interpretation. Empire cannot tolerate even one visible reminder that resistance is possible. The 10th Legion's reputation demands resolution. In 72 or 73 A.D., Lucius Flavius Silva leads the Roman 10th Legion, the Legio X Fretensis, into the Judean desert. His force totals approximately 15,000, including auxiliaries and Jewish prisoners of war pressed into labor service. They arrive at the base of the mountain and survey the terrain with professional eyes. The snake path winding up the eastern cliff is too narrow and too exposed for a frontal assault. On the western face, however, a natural spur of bedrock rises almost halfway up the cliff. There, the engineers decide, is where the ramp will rise. The construction of one of the ancient world's most remarkable engineering feats is about to begin. The speech that Josephus places in Eleazar ben Yah's mouth on that final night is one of the most debated texts in ancient historiography. Josephus was not present at Masada. He could not have heard the words himself. His information, he tells us, comes from 2 women who survived the night by hiding in a cistern with 5 children. They heard Eleazar speak and reported his words to the Romans the following morning. Whether Josephus faithfully records their testimony, embellishes it, or constructs an elaborate rhetorical exercise in the Greek tradition of invented speeches, the question remains genuinely open. What Josephus records is a speech of striking philosophical depth. Eleazar does not argue simply for courage. He argues for a theology of death, reframing what is about to happen as liberation rather than defeat. The soul is immortal. He tells his followers, an idea drawn more from Platonic philosophy than from mainstream Jewish teaching, a detail scholars note with interest. The body is corruptible. Roman captivity means enslavement for the men and violation for the women. Better to die by one's own choice than to become the property of Rome. He argues they will demonstrate to the empire that they were never truly conquered. Josephus says the community debates. Not everyone is immediately persuaded. Some weep at the thought of their children. Eleazar speaks again, pressing his argument with greater urgency. Then the community acts. The men go to their families. They embrace their wives and children. They kill them, tenderly, Josephus says, so they do not suffer. Then the men gather. 10 are chosen by lot to kill the remaining men. When that work is done, those 10 draw lots among themselves. One kills the remaining 9. The last man alive sets fire to the palace, all the buildings but the storerooms, and then takes his own life. When the Romans enter the following morning, they find silence and ash. Josephus writes that the soldiers feel no satisfaction. There is no enemy to subdue, no leader to parade in chains. Only the quiet ruin of a defiance that has consumed itself. The storerooms, deliberately left unburned, confirm the message the defenders wished to leave behind. They had food. They had water. They chose this. The 2 women and 5 children emerge from their hiding place and tell the Romans what happened. Their testimony, relayed through Josephus, is the sole account we possess of Masada's final night. Modern archaeology has complicated the narrative. Yigael Yadin's excavations of 1963 to 65 uncovered remains of at least 25 individuals in a cave on the northern slope. Men, women, and children, alongside armor fragments, sandals, a prayer shawl, and ancient scrolls. He also found pottery shards inscribed with Hebrew names, including one reading Ben Yai, possibly Eleazar's own lot. Subsequent scholars have challenged his conclusions. Some argue the skeletal remains belong to Roman soldiers or later Byzantine period monks. The pottery shards are suggestive, but far from conclusive proof. The mass suicide itself is doubted by some historians. Suicide is contrary to Jewish law, and certain scholars propose that Josephus constructed the narrative for dramatic purposes. Others note that the lot-drawing procedure, having others kill you, was a legal distinction recognized in later tradition. The full truth may be irretrievable, but the power of this story clearly is not. The Roman circumvallation wall rises first. Stretching for more than 4 kilometers around the mountain's base, it is built from dry field stones and stands several meters tall. Watchtowers rise at intervals, commanding long desert sight lines. 8 military camps anchor the perimeter. Recent research by scholars has transformed our understanding of how quickly this was built. Using drone surveys, remote sensing, and 3-dimensional digital modeling, combined with known data on Roman soldiers' daily work capacity, the researchers calculated that the wall and all 8 camps were likely constructed in just 11 to 16 days, not months, days. The Roman military machine, when it chooses to move, moves with terrifying efficiency. On the summit, Eleazar ben Yair and his community watch in silence. They have ample food and water. Haired storerooms and cisterns guarantee that. Their walls are thick. The snake path can be defended by a handful of determined men. Their weakness is not material. It is time. The ramp construction begins on the western face, where the natural bedrock spur gives the Romans their head start. Thousands of laborers, including Jewish prisoners of war, pile earth and stone onto the existing rock. Estimates suggest that 500,000 tons of material are moved during the operation. The ramp climbs day by day, week by week, rising toward the fortress wall above. This creates a terrible moral dilemma for the defenders. Firing down on the Roman work parties means killing fellow Jews pressed into service as slave labor. Josephus records no sorties by the Sicarii against the construction teams, a striking absence compared to the ferocious counterattacks described at other sieges of the war. Whether this reflects moral paralysis or simple lack of opportunity, the record does not say. In the spring of 73 AD, the ramp is complete. The Romans haul a massive siege tower up the finished earthwork. Iron-sheathed against fire, it stands 60 cubits tall, roughly 27 meters. Its lower level houses a battering ram. Its upper platforms carry artillery, ballistae hurling stone balls and iron bolts at the defenders on the ramparts above. Archers and slingers provide covering fire as the tower grinds upward. The defenders respond with ingenuity. Behind the outer casemate wall, they construct a second barrier from beams of timber packed with earth. A wooden wall absorbs the impact of the ram where a stone wall would crack. The ram pounds against it, and the wood yields, the blows dissipated rather than concentrated. The Roman engineers recognize the problem and implement the most direct solution available. They ignite the wooden wall with blazing torches. Josephus describes the moment with dramatic precision. At first, the wind blows the fire back toward the Roman lines. For a fleeting instant, those on the summit may have allowed themselves something close to hope. Then the wind shifts. The wooden beams catch and the flames grow. By nightfall, the inner defensive wall burns to embers and ash. The fortress stands open. The Romans pause, choosing patience over haste. They will wait until morning, a dawn that Josephus places on the eve of Passover, the festival of liberation from bondage. Whether this timing is historical fact or literary embellishment, scholars continue to argue the point. The symbolic weight of the coincidence is almost too perfect to be accidental. On the summit, Eleazar calls his community together for the last time. When Lucius Flavius Silva leads his men through the breached walls of Masada on that April morning in 73 AD, the Roman 10th Legion encounters something entirely unexpected. They came for a battle. They find a necropolis. Josephus writes that the soldiers feel no joy in the discovery. There is no enemy to subdue, no leader to parade in chains, no moment of triumph to record for the histories. Only the silence of a place where defiance has exhausted itself so completely that nothing visible remains but ash, and the storerooms standing intact as a final statement. In strictly military terms, the fall of Masada is almost negligible. The Jewish revolt officially ends not with this siege, but with the destruction of Jerusalem 3 years earlier. Fewer than 1,000 people on a desert plateau pose no conceivable strategic threat to an empire stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia. The Roman army brings nearly 15,000 soldiers against them. In military history, Masada is an epilogue, but a haunting one. The Roman response is efficient and documented. Silva's engineers survey the fortress. The storerooms are found unburned and full grain, oil, wine, and dates preserved in the extraordinary dryness of the desert air. The 2 surviving women and 5 children provide their account to the Roman commanders. A garrison is established on the summit, repurposing Herod's palace complex for Roman administrative use. The 10th Legion then marches back toward Caesarea. For the broader Jewish world, traumatized and scattered after the fall of Jerusalem, Masada registers initially as one grief among many. The destruction of the temple, the mass deaths in the holy city, the enslavement of tens of thousands. These are the overwhelming catastrophes. Masada is a remote footnote in a season of unimaginable loss. Josephus publishes his account of the Jewish War, Malum Judaicum, in the late 70s AD. He writes in Greek for a primarily Roman audience, and his purpose is complex. Some read his work as a justification of Roman authority, explaining why it was right that Rome prevailed. Others read it as a covert tribute to Jewish resistance, preserving stories of courage that a Jewish reader could honor between the lines. Most serious scholars today see both impulses operating simultaneously in a deeply conflicted man. Masada enters the historical record because Josephus writes it down. No other ancient author describes the siege in comparable detail. This dependency on a single complicated source is the fundamental challenge of Masada history. Within the Roman Empire, Masada is not celebrated as a great victory. Titus's triumph focuses on Jerusalem and the temple treasures. Significantly, not one Roman legionnaire's tombstone yet discovered mentions Masada as a posting or engagement. The soldiers who fought there did not consider it worthy of commemoration. Meanwhile, Jewish intellectual life adapts with remarkable resilience. The Rabbinical Academy at Yavna transforms Judaism for a world without a temple. The Mishnah, compiled in the 2nd century, is the direct product of this extraordinary act of cultural reimagination. Masada itself falls silent. The garrison departs. The desert wind takes over. For nearly 19 centuries, Masada is not a symbol. It is a ruin. It sits in the Judean desert, accessible only to the most determined travelers, its walls weathered but preserved with remarkable fidelity by the arid climate. Western explorers begin mapping the ruins in the 19th century and confirm that Josephus' architectural descriptions are strikingly accurate. But the site does not yet inhabit any popular imagination beyond scholarly circles. It is archaeology, not mythology. The first serious modern archaeological survey of Masada is conducted by the British explorer Charles Warren in 1867. He documents the outline of the Roman camps and the circumvallation wall with impressive precision for the methods available to him. Later surveys by other European scholars add detail to the picture, confirming that the Roman siege works are among the best preserved from the ancient world anywhere on Earth. It is not until the 20th century that Masada becomes a site of major scientific excavation. The archaeologist Yigal Yadin leads the most comprehensive excavation between 1963 and 65. His team confirms many of Josephus's descriptions in striking detail. The casemate wall chambers, the 2 palace complexes, the 12 cisterns, the storerooms, the bathhouses, and a small room interpreted as a synagogue. He also finds skeletal remains in a northern cave, alongside personal effects, sandals, fragments of armor, and pottery shards bearing inscribed names. Yadin interprets these as the physical traces of the final defenders. Later scholars challenge those interpretations with considerable force. Nachman ben Yehuda's 1996 analysis identifies multiple instances where the physical evidence is genuinely ambiguous, but the public presentation favors a heroic conclusion without sufficient qualification. Subsequent forensic analysis of the skeletal remains suggests they may belong to Roman soldiers killed during the siege, or to Byzantine period inhabitants who later occupied the summit. The debate among archaeologists and historians continues to this day. UNESCO designates Masada a World Heritage Site in 2001, recognizing its extraordinary historical significance and its status as the finest preserved example of Roman siege works surviving anywhere on Earth. The 8 military camps, the circumvallation wall, and the assault ramp remain fully visible to any visitor who approaches the mountain today. The site draws approximately 750,000 visitors annually. A cable car ascends the eastern face for those who prefer it. A light and sound show plays on summer evenings on the western slope. The snake path is climbed by thousands each year, many beginning their ascent before dawn to watch the sunrise break over the Dead Sea from the summit. Masada is simultaneously a historical site, a symbol, and an archaeological laboratory. The Roman ramp still rises against the western cliff. The Dead Sea still shimmers far below. And the ruins at the summit still hold more questions than any excavation has yet fully answered. We stand at the end of the Masada story, or rather, at the place where history gives way to the ongoing argument about what this story means. That argument is very much alive, and it belongs to the whole world. Masada is not simply a local story. It is a Roman story, a Mediterranean story, a human story. It speaks to every civilization that has ever faced the question of what to do when power becomes absolute and resistance becomes impossible. The Roman Empire that besieged this mountain ruled from Britain to Mesopotamia. The people who stood on its summit came from a tradition stretching back through millennia of recorded history. The clash between them produced something that 2,000 years have not been able to erase. From an international scholarly perspective, the Masada siege represents one of the finest documented examples of Roman military engineering ever studied. Academics across Europe, North America, and the broader world have analyzed the circumvallation wall, the 8 camps, and the assault ramp as textbook illustrations of how Rome projected and sustained military power across difficult terrain. Military historians cite Masada in the same breath as the sieges of Alesia and Carthage as evidence of an imperial machine of unmatched organizational capability. From a broader historical perspective, the story raises questions that echo far beyond the Judean desert. What are the limits of imperial power? What does resistance cost, and who pays that cost? How does a small community maintain its identity and conviction against an overwhelming force? These questions have been asked in every century since the ramp was built, in every corner of the world where empire has met resistance. The archaeological record at Masada also contributes to our global understanding of ancient domestic life, military logistics, water engineering, and architectural ambition. The Herodian palace complexes reveal the extraordinary reach of Roman architectural influence across the ancient Mediterranean world. The siege works reveal the systematic nature of Roman military doctrine applied at the very edge of empire. Modern historians universally acknowledge the epistemological challenge at the heart of this story. We depend almost entirely on a single ancient source, Josephus, whose reliability is genuinely contested. No independent account of the final night exists. The physical evidence is ambiguous. The full truth remains beyond the reach of any excavation or document yet discovered. That uncertainty is itself a lesson. History is rarely as clean as the stories we tell about it. The further we stand from an event, the more we must acknowledge the limits of what we can honestly claim to know. From an Islamic perspective, what took place at Masada is a powerful reminder that no empire, however mighty, escapes the decree of Allah. Rome believed itself eternal, yet Rome fell. Every nation that places its trust in power alone, rather than in divine guidance, walks the same path toward the same end. Allah is Al-Baqi, the everlasting, and all else is temporary. We have traveled from the construction of a desert fortress by a client king who feared both his masters and his subjects to the arrival of the most powerful military force the ancient world had ever assembled at its base. We have documented the Sicarii, their seizure of Masada in 66 AD, their years of occupation above the desert, and their raid on Ein Gedi that left 700 dead. We have followed the Roman 10th Legion as it built its wall, established its 8 camps, raised its ramp against the western cliff, and breached the fortress in the spring of 73 AD. We have examined what Josephus records of the final night, the speeches, the deaths, the 2 surviving women who carried the account to the Roman commanders at dawn. The facts are documented. The siege happened. The fortress fell. What exactly occurred on that final night remains, after 2,000 years, beyond what the historical record can confirm with certainty. And above all of it, as Islam reminds us, is the will of Allah. Empires rise and fall by His decree. Nations are granted power and stripped of it by His will alone. He is Al-Baqi, the everlasting, and everything that this mountain witnessed was temporary. The ramp is still there. The ruins are still there. The Dead Sea is still there. If this documentary added something to your understanding of this history, please like this video and subscribe to Unleash Facts. Thank you for watching.